Yeah. Maxwell Wheeler. Max is really cool. So Max's thesis, The First Trip Home and Other Stories, fiction. His thesis committee was Dolan Perkins Valdez, Stephanie Grant. Max Wheeler is a writer from South Florida who currently resides in Arlington, Virginia with his wife Catherine and their dog Lando. They will be relocating to Denver, Colorado, where Max will write and edit energy market analysis while he works on his first novel, a piece of historical fiction based on the real-life travels of his grandfather in the early 1920s. Max.
Hello. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Well, first I'd just like to thank all of, the people in my cohort and our program in general. It's been one hell of a ride. And to our faculty as well. I mean, thank you so much for everything. Just thank you. And to my wife, Kat, and my folks and my grandfather, who, without whom this could not have been written. So this part of the story is where he is currently in Belgium behind enemy lines fighting the Nazis. And he has just gone through a whole mess of stuff, and I'll just get to it. As he stepped outside, Henry breathed in the fresh air as deep as he could. It felt crisp and clean and new. Henry turned and trudged through the snow, making his way around the cabin to the surplus of wood in the bin below the window. Once there, he scooped as much as he could carry with one arm and replaced the tarp with the other. As he returned to the front of the cabin, he couldn't believe what he saw in the clearing. The snow was gone. It was replaced with lush green grass, and in the middle of it all was his mother and Anna. They walked barefoot and enjoyed the sunlight as they kissed their faces. He could see every inch of Anna's dark hazel eyes as they curiously gazed over at him, and every inch of his mother's jet black hair that tumbled over her shoulders. And for a second, he could even smell the mixture of spices and meat her hair so often smelled like as it wafted over to him, though there was no breeze. Pozole, he thought, and it was heavenly. Whatever this world was stood in complete opposite to the one that he was just in. Not wanting to blink, Henry's eyes stung from staring. He couldn't leave them. Not now. Not here. Unable to hold his eyes open any longer, he blinked, and they were gone. Shocked and depleted, Henry dropped to his knees in the snow-covered clearing that had returned to him, and he began to sob. His combination of hiccups, wails, and hyperventilating sang through the air like an elegy. For his family, for his home, for Victor, and for himself. He felt in his chest a loneliness that was deeper than time, and every moment was like an eternity in which he hoped to be swallowed up, but wasn't. Cursed as he was, he remained. After his fingers and toes began to numb and the icy morning air had stiffened his face, Henry picked up the logs and went back into the cabin. Driven by a mindless instinct, he searched the men for anything that could be used: weapons, a lighter, a canteen, a spade. Then, one by one, he stripped them of their jackets, their sweaters, and their shirts, though he did none of these things to Victor. Once the scavenging was done, he dragged the corpses outside one by one. The Germans were piled one upon the other, and Victor was laid beside them, his arms crossed over his chest and his eyes closed. With one of the German shirts, Henry was able to remove the detritus that the bodies had left behind in the cabin. The stink was unbearable. Once the work was finished and all the bodies were outside, Henry sat silently on the cabin floor, unable to decide what to do next. Perhaps he would just sleep. Perhaps he would continue west. After several minutes, Henry finally rose from the floor and left. Beside the cabin, the heap of jumbled and broken flesh looked like a foul creation. Like some nightmarish beast that stalked the surrounding woods, and called that land its home. Faceless and semi-nude, it did not move or speak, and the fully clothed man laying beside them was like its caretaker, stoic and immovable, the complete embodiment of peace. All around them, the clearing and the woods were bare but for the fallen snow and Henry's tracks that led westward from that place. Out of the chimney, steady black wisps of smoke began to rise above the cabin in the clearing and make watercolor streaks against the clear blue sky. They hung about for a moment and vanished forever. Thank you.